here from Darkstar Astrology, bringing you the October forecast for the first week of October from the 1st till the 7th. Well, the big news this month is that it's eclipse month, and that means that we have the lunar eclipse on October the 8th in Aries and the solar eclipse on October the 23rd in Scorpio. And we also have a Mercury retrograde during this time, and during this time we also have the Sun very close to Mercury and Venus, which makes them combust. Now, in traditional astrology terms, this means that these planets are not quite seen and are quite secretive, and they lose some of their power to the almighty Sun. And this is good for leaders, bosses, and those secure in their sovereignty, but not so good for those who depend on the good graces of those in power. Therefore, it's always good to consider when these planets are combust, when you have to deal with authority figures. Now, I'm a great believer that if we're grounded, centered, and focused on our path, then our free will override fate and such things as combustion. But if you like to be extra sure, and you do need to ask a big favour from someone in higher status than yourself, check out the dates on my website on the October forecast, and you'll see where when Mercury is combust and when Venus is combust with the Sun as well, and also when they're exact, because when they're exact it's a different ball game altogether, because then they become super powerful and it's not counted as combust. So we can't really go into that here because it's quite a complicated topic, but if you read up about combustion and cadzimi, which is when they're exactly conjunct, then you'll sort of understand how to use this a bit more. But basically, you want to harness the power of when they're exact for things like, for Mercury, for example, for things like communication, commerce, exams, and medical matters. So that will be basically the cadzimi, when it's really powerful. It was going to be October the 16th, and it'll last till October the 17th, but there are exact times for this that you can look at on the website for. And anything to do with love, the arts, decorating, and women's issues and beautifying yourself generally, the best time to do all those will be when it's cadzimi, which will be October the 24th to the 25th. Other times it'll be combust, and it's not that it will be difficult for you to do those things. It'll just be that if you don't harness the power for yourself, and if you're not really in control of your life, then those days may be difficult. But as I said, you can always override fate. That's my belief anyway. But this whole week is blessed with a glorious, glorious grand fire trine, and hopefully this will inspire us with the wonder and how fantastic the world can be. So for this week, I urge you, switch off that news about the Ebola virus, or just switch it off. Don't look at anything to do with ISIS in the Middle East, and try to connect with what these can-do planets are saying to you. Now, the fire trine comprises of Mars in Sagittarius, Jupiter in Leo, and Uranus in Aries, and they're all around 14 degrees of these signs. Now this aspect is super, super zesty. Yes, I know it's also Mercury retrograde too this week, but if you read that post, you will also see that the Mercury retrograde journey is actually rather brilliant, because it will take you on an inspiring voyage to Speaker, the very fertile sprig of wheat that Virgo the angel holds. Now, I prefer to think of Virgo as an angel rather than an uninspiring and sterile virgin. And I say that because the true meaning of the word virgin has lost its magic over time. But Speaker the star retains much of what this sign is truly about, which is practical magic and herbalism. But first, this week, the Sun touches the star Diadem, which is found in the tiara found in the constellation of Berenice's hair. Now, the myth behind that is that Berenice chopped her flowing locks off to ensure that her husband returned safely from war. But could this really be about sacrificing our spiritual purpose in the name of love? Or I think this can work the other way, where we might have to sacrifice love in order to become a chaste priestess or priest, at least until some important work is created. This choice will probably be highlighted just around the quarter moon on October the 1st, which is conjunct the planet of hard knocks, Pluto. The Dark Lord could force us to be quite ruthless in what we amputate from our lives if we make the right choice on what needs pruning, that is. Then we can really enjoy the inspiration flowing from the grand fire trine that peaks on October the 6th. But before we can make use of the spiritual flames, we have to contend with the sun on Porrima on October the 3rd. Now, astrologer Vivian Robson, my favourite guy, interprets Porrima with the sun as follows. Involved in an intrigue, some difficulty of short duration, leaving native in unpleasant position. Well, I think that this day before Mercury goes retrograde, which is quite a wobbly day anyway, could bring up the intrigue. If this touches your chart, then I think it may be something in the collective that debases the divine feminine in some way, or literally a female spiritual leader could come up, because this is also a prophetic star. I think this is interesting that this star is sometimes listed as an atonement or the submissive one. And Robson lists it as kafir, which actually means infidel. Now, Eric Morse says that the Arabic title kafir, infidel, no doubt springs from the Islamic revulsion of pagan goddesses. This revulsion of female divinity, and with that the ability to prophesy, well, this is similar to the Diadem theme of subjugating one's prophetic powers to appease a relationship. Now, this all doesn't quite square with the general meaning of Porrima as being courteous, refined, lovable, a lovable character with prophetic instincts. So it's strange that this star only becomes a tad negative when combined with the sun, which we could read as those angel Virgo powers becoming dangerous in the hands of the elite, or that they shouldn't be used for ego or in a left brain fashion. Now, I suggest if you are touched by Diadem or Porrima's influence this week, that is that you have planets or angles in your chart at 9 or 10 degrees Libra, then you hold your head high and don't rise to any inflammable bait. Remember, you have the option to just glide away gracefully. You don't need to take whatever's being thrown into your energy fields. Now, funny that I mentioned Isis, the jihadist state, not the goddess this time, before I saw the connection with Kafir and Porrima. I just feel that some of the aspects this week, there is such a sharp contrast between beautiful possibilities, but also really dark shadows of terrorism and ill treatment towards the sacred feminine. And I don't want to go into a political rant, but I suggest you look at the origins of this extreme movement. Now, I quote from a report about ISIS saying that reports have surfaced of ISIS soldiers slashing women's stomachs and burying children alive, and it's just awful, and I'm quite suspicious of how ISIS has managed to gain such a grip in the Middle East. And you know, we have to ask ourselves who's funding it. So really events in the world seem to be targeting the sacred feminine just when it's becoming so powerful. And you know, I was talking about the full moon, the first full moon that was on Regulus while it's in Virgo last month as well. So you know, there's a strong divine feminine presence coming up, but then there's this Isis thing going on at the same time, and it's just, you know, it's just weird synchro with it being called Isis as well. It's just very, very strange. So for me, I just think this whole Isis thing is a very strong manifestation of the Uranus square Pluto aspect, which we've had on and off all year. And I mean, it's not exact right now, but on October the 4th, the same day as Mercury retrograde, we do have Sun square Pluto, which brings up power struggles, competition, survival instincts, and hidden motivation. But through all of this, the absolute necessity to trust and not allow our soul families to be divided. And so, you know, in our personal lives, there is a great sexual tension here, and there could also be jealousy too. The build up to this grand trine will be extremely intense. On October, however, October the 5th, however, the exact Mars trine Uranus will give us the iron will to push forward revolutionary ideas and to force change. It could bring out a feisty leader, maybe a female, but they will be very unusual in their fighting methods, these females, or this female. October the 6th, the grand trine finally peaks, and at the end of the week, the Sun opposite Uranus could make us feel extremely wired by all the electricity and euphoria in the collective. Adrenaline is pumping as we feel we are on the crest of a wave. The cardinal signs especially could have quite a surprise on October the 7th with a sudden reversal of fortune. So have faith, everyone. That brings me to the end of this forecast for this week. Hope you have a wonderful grand trine experience. Hang in there, and I'll see you next week. Do come to my website for sort of more details on the things I've mentioned, and have a good week. This is Marina speaking to you from Darkstar Astrology. Bye-bye.